Good morning and welcome to the 36th annual NOFA Mass Winter Conference, where the theme this year is cooperative foodways, building our future together. And this morning, we have a special presentation that's titled From Vermont to Maine Across the Northeast, Farmworkers and Allies Call on Hannaford to join with dignity. Before we begin, we just want to recognize that we're presenting this conference on land that was inhabited by the Nipmuc people prior to European colonization. And as we work to heal destruction caused by colonization, we appreciate your support, solidarity, and continued learning. And to learn more and to honor those whose land you now occupy, there's the link in the website there on your screen. We also want to recognize as an organization that our agriculture system is built on stolen land and the forced labor and exploitation of stolen Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Our conference aims to help address this harm and bring equity to the food system. So for those of you that are interested, you can participate in our BIPOC and White Ally caucus groups this weekend. Today from 1 to 2 in Sheehan Hall in the multi-purpose room, we have the BIPOC caucus, and the White Ally Caucus will meet in the Sheehan Hall dining room. Again, some of our institutional goals in working towards racial equity in the food system. We have 3 major points that are to protect the rights of farm and food workers, to support legislation to advance the work towards reparations, and to support BIPOC-led organizations through sharing land, money, equipment, and connections. And some of those organizations here in the Northeast, you can find their names again in the presentation on the screen. Of course, I'd like to thank our sponsors. And I'll now introduce our presenters, Madeline and Abel, who are representing the Migrant Justice organization. And Migrant Justice is a grassroots organization founded and led by immigrant farm workers sustaining Vermont's dairy industry. Their mission is to build the voice, capacity, and power of the farm worker community and engage community partners to organize for economic justice and human rights. And with that, Madeline and Abel, you can get started.
Thank you. I just want to say really quickly, I was going to share my screen, but it's saying I don't have the ability to do that. So I wonder if I have the button. So I thought that I'd be able to, but
you should be able to do it now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We ideally would have been there in person, but we are here through Zoom. So special thanks for every single one of you that was able to join in person, those of you that are joining through Zoom. And a very special thanks to NOFA Massachusetts for allowing us to be in this space, sharing and talking a little bit about our work, why we do it, how we do it. So really excited to be here, share some updates to with those of you that have been following our work, those of you that are newer to our work, share a little bit about it. My name is Abel Luna. I'm an organizer with Migrant Justice, and I've been with Migrant Justice for about a little bit over 9 years now. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Madeline.
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm also part of the Migrant Justice team. The focus of my work with Migrant Justice is building support for farm worker leadership with ally groups and communities. So I'm thrilled to be here. We're really excited to be part of the NOFA Mass presentation and conference. Abel's going to be presenting the first half, and then I'll be talking a little bit farther on.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, so I think that will be, usually when we're in person, we like to ask you guys to share or, just yell out loud, how you have been involved or in which ways you have been involved with migrant justice, whether that was an action or a phone call or some type of, ways that you have been involved. So if you want to type it on the chat, that'll be great. Just to see how many people know about migrant justice and our work. But for those of you that are a little bit newer, just share a little bit about, what migrant justice is and where we come from. So Migrant Justice is it's a grassroots organization, that's founded and that was led and that is led by migrant farm workers. And I'll say that again. Migrant Justice, a farm worker led and farm worker build organization. Here in the state of Vermont, to transform their reality and the conditions that people are facing in the dairy industry. And in order to do that, in order to achieve, economic justice and human rights, we need the support of our allies, such as you guys. And that's why, we're here today. Without you guys, we couldn't do it. And so all of the victories that we have had along the way, we've done it together. So we're excited to be here, and that, so moving on a little bit, just a little bit of the history of migrant justice and how we got started. So Migrant Justice, got started in December of late 2009 after the death of a young farm worker. His name was Jose Obed Santis Cruz from Chiapas, Mexico. He was only 19 years old, and we always say that his death could have been prevented if the right equipment, the right staffing had been in place. It was winter, and he was wearing winter clothing, and they got a scraper, that cleans the waste of the cows, caught onto his pants and dragged him, and that strangled him to death. And that's sort of that was how that was the spark, that the community basically, had in order to come together and to start some conversation. So when Jose Obed's that happened, some of his family members, some of his friends, and some of the neighboring farms, started to come together and talk a little bit about, what had happened, so basically that's how the community started to come together, how the conversation about sort of migrant farm workers maintaining and sustaining the dairy industry in Vermont, started to come about, not just amongst the migrant community, but also amongst the wider community in Vermont. Very little people at the time knew that there was, migrant farm workers living in those conditions or going through certain situations. That eventually those meetings in farms amongst some family and friends eventually evolved into what we now call community asambleas or community assemblies, which are basically safe spaces where workers from all over the state, different regions of the state come together, safe space. We basically share a meal and we talk about some of the conditions that people are facing, good conditions, and bad conditions. For example, if you're having, bad housing or, bad working conditions and that sort of stuff. And that, through that process, throughout the years, we've been able to win successful campaigns such as the driver license, the fair and impartial policing policy, and meal with dignity. So that is sort of the recipe for success of migrant justice. Bringing the community together and talking about issues and together figuring out what's the best solution or the best path, so that everybody can have dignity and respect in the dairy industry. So that's just a little bit of the history of how our work started and some of the the campaigns there. After winning the driver license and some of the fair and impartial policing policy, people started feeling a little bit safer getting on the roads, knowing that they can move freely and they're not going to be targeted by police. The police is not going to be turning them over into a border patrol. So people were feeling a little bit safer. But conditions on the farm still remain the same, right? People were still working 14 hours per day, facing bad living conditions. For example, people, overcrowded housing conditions and stuff like that. And so um, that's when we started to, to see, okay, well, what do we do now that we have a driver license and we have the fair and impartial policing policy? How do we come back to this central piece, which is, the workplace, to get to, work and live with dignity, and that's sort of what started, the process of, talking to, going out to the community, doing surveys and trying to understand what are some of the biggest issues that are affecting the community. And through that we learned, about 80 to 90% of the farms in Vermont, of the workers in Vermont, are in, in 80 to 90% of the farms in Vermont are hiring migrant farm workers to, to do the work. So a lot of these farms are, very small farms. Some of these farms are very isolated. Some of them are very invisible. They're really far away from, the main places, and where conditions are ripe for human rights abuses. Workers that are facing or have a schedule that is 60 to 80 hours per week. A lot of the times, they don't have a day off per week, or they don't have the time for a lunch break. So you're talking about 12, 14 hours on a day without having the time to eat. And that is something that's pretty normal, on a dairy farm or schedule where, you're working 60 to 80 hours per week. That is sort of expected. It's pretty normal. You have overcrowded housing conditions, as I was sharing, where you have 2 to 3 people sharing a room. So basically what that looks like is, a person that is, coming back from the shift, the other person is waking up in the room and getting ready to leave. So they're just basically, interchanging, the person that are leaving the room, other people are coming and going. So you have those conditions as well. And on a farm, you're working with, animals that are hundreds of pounds. You're working sometimes with a lot of chemicals. You don't know what are some of the negative effects of these chemicals, and so you're exposed to a lot of these dangers. So, on the surveys that we did, there was a high percentage of accidents with chemicals as well. So those are some of the issues, that we found, and on top of that, the lack of labor protections, or the lack of protections, in the labor sector, or in dairy farm workers, leads to people being exposed to sexual harassment, gender discrimination, unjust firings, human trafficking as well in some cases. But we don't want to paint every single farm with the same brush. We're not saying every single farm, is the same, and every single farm is treating workers the same, or these conditions are present on every single farm. That's not what we're saying. These conditions are there, and we also found farms that are treating workers really good. There's dignity and respect, and wages are pretty good, and housing is pretty good, and that's workers are saying, hey, we need more of that. If those people have it, we can also do it. There should be dignity for every single person, right? And so, that's when we started to, I'll leave you guys with a short clip, a short video, Thelma, a farm worker and organizer, that share a little bit more about some of the conditions as she was working on a dairy farm.
Mi nombre es Thelma Gómez y soy parte del Comité de Coordinación de Justicia Migrante. Estuve en un rancho en el que la casa estaba en el mismo rancho y no habían baños y eran muchas horas de trabajo, no se pagaba ni el mínimo y no había día de descanso. Y en otro también, donde vivíamos en una casa donde no había calentón y en tiempo de frío
era muy fuerte y también se iba el agua. El motivo por el que yo me involucré a Justicia Migrante fue por las ganas de cambiar la situación aquí en Vermont, porque queremos trabajos dignos y que nuestros derechos sean respetados, porque no importa de qué parte del mundo vengamos, tenemos derechos. Creo que los farmers han decidido contratar la mano de obra migrante porque entienden que es un trabajo muy rudo y muy difícil que pocas personas quieren hacer. Las grandes corporaciones que controlan la industria han bajado el precio de la leche y los farmers se sienten presionados al bajar los sueldos y las condiciones a los trabajadores. Ahora estoy en un lugar donde hay mejores condiciones, pero los ranchos por los que yo pasé siguen siendo igual y siguen habiendo compañeros que siguen siendo explotados y queremos que cambie eso realmente. No puede seguir la situación así. Hoy nos estamos organizando para cambiar el poder y para que los farmers y farm workers tengan una voz en la industria. Yo tenía mi camotal sembrado. Queremos ser ya reconocidos por todo el esfuerzo que hacemos para crear los productos muy famosos de Vermont. Yo tenía mi camotal sembrado en 5 de luna, sembrado en 5 de luna. Yo tenía mi camotal.
Hola a toda la comunidad migrante.
All right. Yeah, every time I watch the video, I get a lot of sort of emotions and flashbacks. Watching Telma and a lot of the leaders and the sort of the meetings that you saw, it was the asambleas, sort of where we come together and do the analysis and all of that, and I'm always excited and looking forward to those. But yeah, so as Thelma was mentioning, and she was describing some of the conditions, right, that are happening on the dairy industry. We have to, I think it's important to ask ourselves sort of why is it that the workers are earning below the minimum wage, or why is it that workers are living in 2 to 3 people per room in overcrowded crossing conditions? Why is there's no safety equipment, on some of the farms? We have to ask ourselves, why is that happening? And to do that, we have to look at sort of what are the roots, what are the things that are causing this, and if we look at the pyramid that's on the screen, for example, that's the process that we started to do with in Migrant Justice leadership, right? After doing the sort of the surveys and learning about the issues that we were just talking about, we had to ask ourselves, well, why are these things happening? Even if sometimes the farmers are trying to do the right things and improve the housing conditions, improve their wages, but sometimes they cannot do it. They run into economic issues, and when looking at the very root, if we look at the pyramid at the very bottom, we have workers. And as we go up, so at the very bottom it says trabajadores, which stands out for workers. And as we move up, it says cooperativas, which is the co-ops. And at the very top, you have corporaciones, which are the corporations. And what we see is as you go up to the very top, you see, very few. You see a small concentration of power at the very top. So what you have is very few corporations that are calling the shots, right? They're calling the shots on what are the prices of milk that they get to pay. And because there's very few of them, they're creating this downward pressure where they're pretty much, forcing farmers to accept these prices of milk. The price of milk are so low that they're similar to the ones in the 70s. And so that's how bad it is. And what that happens is that farmers, are forced to accept those prices. Okay, well, where else can I sell my milk? I'm going to go out of business if I don't. So they're forced to look for ways to cut, expenses, and usually that's workers, right? Cutting the wages, cutting, not providing houses, not providing benefits. And so when we're talking about, at the end of the day, who's taking home all of the money? It's not workers, it's not farmers, right? It's at the very top, the very few people that have concentrated power, creating this, this downward pressure. And so that's why we always say that, farmers and farm workers have a lot of things in common, right? They have, we need a better redistribution of the money that they're taking home at the end of the day. And so, we need to take into account when we're looking at the root of what is causing this. We need to look at corporations as part of the solution as well, and not let them off the hook. And so if we move on, so this analysis of going after corporations and having them take responsibility for the human right abuses in their supply chain is not unique to Vermont. We actually learned about this model from the Coalition of Immokalee Workers down in Florida. With the Fair Food Program in the tomato industry, they have agreements with corporations such as Walmart, Taco Bell, Burger King, McDonald's, some of the biggest corporations in the world. They're part of this larger network called the Worker-Driven Social Responsibility Network. There's other organizations around the globe that are practicing what we call the Worker-Driven Social Responsibility Model, or WSR for short. So organizations in Bangladesh, in clothing factories for Nike and Adidas and other famous brands, are also part under the agreement. And so what we see is sort of workers, the parts of the world sort of, understanding that there's a solution to the challenges that we face, and the solution is going after the corporations and demanding them to take responsibility for the conditions that they have created, right? And so it's a growing sort of model, and other organizations, in the Northeast as well, are sort of starting to explore, can this work in the fishing industry? Can this work in this other industry? And so we're really excited for this to continue to grow. Coming back to Vermont, so we saw this model. Well, this could work in their industry, so we tried it, and we tried, brought the Meal with Dignity, and basically how it works. It's basically Migrant Justice signs a legally binding agreement with a corporation, and that corporation, basically they're signing up is to take responsibility for those abuses in their supply chain, and to clean them up, right? So the corporation commits to buy from the farms here in Vermont that are part of the program, and they pay a premium to those farms. They pay a higher price for their milk, so that they're able to make those changes necessary that the workers need. And so farms receive this premium, and there is a process to make sure that the premium is going to and it's sort of arriving in the farm in forms of implementation. For example, implementing a day off per week, implementing a lunch break, implementing better housing, or things that need changes. Basically, the farm received the premium, as I was mentioning, workers sort of created the program, they created the standards, and this basically covers sort of the things that we need for dignity and respect. And some of these things under the code are basically wages, hours, rest and schedule, housing, protections against sexual harassment, discrimination, retaliation, and so many more. What happens if a farm, for example, doesn't comply? If there's a farm that gets the premium, for example, it's not making these changes on the farm, right? Well, there is the risk that the farm can get basically kicked out of the program and lose the ability to receive the premium, and lose the ability to receive to sell to that company. In this case, for example, Ben & Jerry's is one of the buyers. And so if a farm doesn't comply, they run the risk of not being able to sell to the company. So that is the market pressure that they have. So it's better to comply than not to comply. that's a little bit about sort of how the program works, a little bit about sort of the WSR and how it looks here in Vermont in the dairy industry. And just so, I'll get into the campaign and Ben & Jerry's. I mentioned Ben & Jerry's a little bit. Ben & Jerry's is the first company, first corporation to join on to the Milk with Dignity program. It took him about 3 years to sign on to the model or to the program. But like I was saying, they understood that they cannot claim that their supply chain is clean of human rights abuses unless they joined the program. And 3 years later, they understood that, and they did. Because every single corporation is exposed to human rights abuses in their supply chain unless they join a worker-driven model such as Milk with Dignity. And so now, 100% of Ben & Jerry's supply chain, 100% of the farms, they're receiving or the program is being implemented in those farms, and covers about 300 workers, and it represents about 20% of the dairy industry here in Vermont and some farms also in New York State. Millions of dollars have flown have moved directly from Ben & Jerry's pockets into workers' pockets in forms of, like I was mentioning, better housing, better wages, and all of that stuff, like pay vacations, pay sick days, and stuff like that. Yeah, and so we always say that through the program the new day has arrived, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. There's more than 300 workers in Vermont maintaining and sustaining the dairy industry. And that's how do we bring other corporations on board, and have them understand that piece, that they're not free from human rights abuses, and in order to do so they need to join a program like Milk with Dignity. So this is an ongoing conversation amongst our leadership, and I think Madeline will share a little bit about that now. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Abel. So yeah, to talk, the second half of the presentation is going to be about expanding the Milk with Dignity program, because like Abel said, this program has had incredible success in ending human rights abuses within Ben & Jerry's supply chain, the dairy farms that they buy milk and cream from. But that is only covering about 20% of the dairy industry in Vermont and a little bit in New York State. So that leaves a lot of farms still outside of the program, still not having these protections. And so the farm worker leadership team for Migrant Justice, which is called the Coordinating Committee, spent a lot of time analyzing the industry, figuring out what would be strategic, what would have the biggest impact, where do we go next with this successful program, and decided to focus on the brand, the supermarket Hannaford, as the next target for expanding the Milk with Dignity program. So Hannaford is a big store in the state of Massachusetts and across New England. I'm sure many of you have heard of it and maybe shopped there. Hannaford has almost 200 stores across the Northeast, and they're a really large buyer of dairy throughout the region. So that means they really have an opportunity to help expand Milk with Dignity by joining the program. Hannaford is actually owned by a larger multinational corporation that's called Ahold Delhaize. And Ahold Delhaize has an annual global sales of more than $75 billion. So that means that Hannaford can afford to join this program. They can afford to pay farmers the premium for their milk that Abel was talking about, that economic redistribution, that funding to make changes on farms. And when Hannaford joins Milk with Dignity, it will have an enormous impact in expanding this successful program and bringing that new day that Abel was talking about to hundreds, if not thousands, of more farm workers across the Northeast region. So to give a bit of an update on where things are at with the Hannaford, the Milk with Dignity Hannaford campaign. It was the summer of 2019 when farm workers first reached out to Hannaford in multiple different ways, trying to set up a dialogue, trying to set up a time to talk. And they received no response. And so in the fall of 2019, farm workers in Vermont decided to launch a public campaign calling on Hannaford and pressuring Hannaford to join this program. And so now it's been more than 3 years, and farm workers have used a lot of different ways to pressure Hannaford to join this program. And consumers and allies have played a really important role in this campaign, sending thousands of emails. At this point, I think also thousands of phone calls, doing phone call days of action, thousands of postcards as well, and keeping up a really constant pressure through social media, which we'll talk about some more. Also, farm worker-led actions have been really important part of this campaign. Several really large marches in the state of Maine. We've coordinated days of action where delegations across the Northeast have gone to visit their local Hannaford store. During the height of the pandemic, we did a lot of car caravans, all kinds of different rallies and protests. Most recently, farm workers did a month of action in the fall of this past year, where there were weekly rallies at Hannaford stores. And then on December 18th, organized a big march to close out the year, and that's actually what this this photo is from, that December 18th march, which was in Middlebury, Vermont. Hopefully, I imagine some of you have participated in some of these actions, and we're really excited to talk about how to continue participating. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has really complicated the campaign and interrupted many of the actions. But farm workers have never let up the pressure and are really committed to seeing this campaign through. And so Migrant Justice is, relatively speaking, a fairly small group of farm workers standing up to this mega corporation, which, as I mentioned, is bringing in more than $75 billion a year. So how are we going to win? How are we going to bring Hannaford to the table? Farm workers and consumers need to really come together and unite to bring Hannaford a loud and consistent message that we expect milk with dignity, and we're not going to accept anything else. We need to really make them realize that the cost to their brand, to the Hannaford brand, for not signing on to Milk with Dignity is actually higher than it would cost to just join the program. We know it's possible because we did it with Ben & Jerry's, and you heard from Abel, it wasn't easy. It took nearly 3 years, but in the end we won. And we know that we can also win with Hannaford, but it's going to take a lot more support and a lot more work. So I want to talk about some things that we can do together to support farm worker rights and bring Hannaford, turn up the pressure on Hannaford to bring them to the table. One of the simplest and quickest things is to use Hannaford's public social media platforms to call for Milk with Dignity. And Hannaford is super active on their Facebook page. They're constantly posting things there. And so an action that farm workers and allies alike have been doing is responding to Hannaford's own posts within their Facebook account to expose the reality that dairy farm workers are facing and call for Milk with Dignity. So if you have a Facebook account, I invite you to open it right now. If you have a phone on you, if you're sitting in front of a laptop, and look for the Hannaford Supermarket page, find one of their most recent posts and add a comment there calling for Milk with Dignity. And when you do that, I think that you'll see this is something that has been going on for years. There's thousands of comments, both from farm workers. You'll see a lot of photos and videos, which this slide shows some examples of, and also great statements from allies as well across the region, across the country, calling for Hannaford to step up and join Milk with Dignity. Another really important way to support Milk with Dignity is to adopt your local Hannaford. And so this is something that we've been working with groups and individuals across the Northeast region to come together around their local store and plan reoccurring actions for Milk with Dignity. This is something that's been happening more and more over the last 2 years, and we really want to expand it and strengthen it during the next year. Because it's really important that Hannaford not just hear from farm workers in Vermont, you know, or every so often on a coordinated day of action, but that they really feel this widespread, dispersed, and constant consumer pressure. And these actions, they don't need to be really big. They don't need to be complicated. Some groups have just been like going with a buddy, like a buddy pair, to go talk to their the local store manager at their local Hannaford. And other groups have come together and actually organized bigger things, which is also awesome. You can go and deliver a letter to the store manager and ask them to talk to the higher ups in the company about joining Milk with Dignity. You could do a mini rally out front of the store. You could just set up in the parking lot and hand out flyers to customers. There's all kinds of ways of doing this, and we really encourage groups to be creative and think about what works in your own community. So I think during the question and answer time, I'm going to put a link to a toolkit in the chat. You can also see the link on the screen here. And that's something that we've designed to really support local groups. Migrant Justice is here to help you do this in your own community. And so we're really excited to work with you on it. As you can see, we put a list also of the Hannaford locations in Massachusetts. There's at least 15 different stores, so a lot of different places where this could be happening. In the last 3 years, we've been able to work with groups to do actions in 4 of these stores. I think in Waltham, Middleborough, Brookfield, and Oaksbridge. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of the towns. But we really want to expand this. It would be incredible to have a Milk with Dignity presence at all 15 of these stores, or even 10 of them. So we're really looking forward to working with you all to expand this Adopt a Hannaford strategy. Another thing is that in the March of 2020, farm workers disembarked on a regional speaking tour to build support for Milk with Dignity, which was completely cut short by the COVID pandemic. It was right at this exact moment that the pandemic was really hitting the Northeast. And so we literally had to like come home from a presentation that we were in the middle of in March of 2020 and cancel the tour. However, in the fall of 2021, farm workers went back on the road and were able to complete a really successful speaking tour all across the region and did 30 presentations across 7 states. So that was a really exciting and huge project. And you can see as far south as New York City, all the way up into Maine and across to upstate New York, down to Massachusetts, Connecticut, and more. So we're planning to replicate that. Farm workers are planning a speaking tour for the month of April in 2023, and hoping to do even more presentations to build more support, more momentum for the Milk with Dignity campaign. And so that's something that we wanted to share with you all because we're looking for hosts. Presentations will be an hour and a half long and can be scheduled on any day, anytime throughout the month of April. So schools, organizations, community groups, faith groups, farms, you name it. If you're part of a community or a group of people that you think would be interested in learning about Milk with Dignity and getting active to support farm worker rights, please let us know, and we would love to set up a presentation with you during the month of April for this year's speaking tour. And then I wanted to mention the state of Maine is particularly important to this campaign with Hannaford, because Southern Maine is where the Hannaford Supermarket's corporate offices are. And that's why farm workers have really focused on organizing several actions at those at that corporate headquarters, which is in Scarborough, Maine, right outside Portland, as well as a really big march that was the culminating action for the speaking tour that we did in 2021. And so we wanted to end this presentation by showing a brief video of that Portland march, because it was a really high point in the campaign, and I think it's an inspiring note to end on. But also because we really hope to bring in more supporters in your neighboring state of Massachusetts, especially in the greater Boston area, because it's actually really close to Portland. And we are planning another really big action in Southern Maine for June. And so we haven't started to put the word out publicly about that, but it's something that we wanted to mention specifically to this group in this presentation, and invite you all to stay tuned for a big march in Southern Maine for Milk with Dignity. So with that, I'm going to put on the video. Whoops. Oh dear. See if I can go back. There we go.
Escucha, estamos en la lucha. Hannaford, 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 escucha, estamos en la
El programa de Leche con Dignidad consiste en beneficiar a los trabajadores, puntos muy importantes. Hoy vamos hacia el estado de Maine, hacia unas oficinas de Hannaford, con el motivo de seguir presionando a que Hannaford firme el contrato y que muchos compañeros de nosotros salgan beneficiados bajo el programa. Y Hannaford tiene las posibilidades de poder cumplir los sueños de los trabajadores.
La gente queremos que escuche que las vacas no se ordeñan solas, y como que los consumidores cada vez que consuman un producto lácteo recuerden que estamos los trabajadores migrantes ordeñando las vacas. Como ese es el mensaje, y que demandemos que estas corporaciones como Hannaford vengan a la mesa.
I know for many of you this is your first time at a Migrant Justice event. This is your first time coming out and hitting the streets to stand in solidarity with your farm worker siblings. And now that you're here, I want to ask you to take this as a personal responsibility, that this fight for human rights is now yours too. It is all of ours. That we need to fight together to make sure that nobody's rights are violated, and that the farm workers behind Hannaford brand milk of their rights and dignity respected. And so if Hannaford CEO Mike Vail is asking himself, why are people marching tonight? It's because we're demanding our basic human rights. And that's what's motivating us to travel from all over the region, to travel across states, here to Hannaford's backyard, to say we want milk with dignity! Escucha, esta
All right, so
So I just want to real quickly reiterate some of the ways to get involved in, and then we're excited to open it up to questions and answers. One thing I'm going to put in a link also in the chat when we come off of screen sharing, but invite you all to sign up on the Migrant Justice website to join our email updates. There's a form to fill out there, and that's a great way to stay tuned, to find out what's going on, find out what the opportunities to participate are. And then, as I mentioned, comment in support of Milk with Dignity on Hannaford's Facebook posts. Something you can do right now, you can do in an hour, you can do tomorrow. The more noise that we make on their public platform, the better. And you can see that this is something that's been happening for years, and it's something we want to amplify. Adopt your local Hannaford. We're really excited to work with you all to really expand that strategy in the state of Massachusetts and beyond. And then please talk to us about hosting a presentation during the speaking tour in April. That's going to be a fantastic opportunity to bring farm worker delegation to your community to hear directly about this campaign and what you can do. So with that, I'm going to bring us off of screen share, and we're excited to do some question and answer and discussion.
Valerie, do we have any questions from the audience? You're on mute, just in case.
We do have one audience member here. Do you have some questions?
Sure. I'm just.
Can you hear her? Can you hear our audience member? Everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you all for the work that you do and for showing up today and sharing about it. If I'm the only one in the room, maybe I can ask a lot. See if I'm just tapping some of the arguments, and I'm trying to curious about
A little bit hard to hear.
Yeah, actually.
is it
Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Let's. Why don't you come right over where I am? What the heck? That's something I'll have to learn if there is a larger group.
I'm glad I don't have your job today.
I know. Here,
Is this the microphone?
Yeah, it's actually the camera.
Oh.
So, but
okay.
the
So
microphone
mine-
must be, maybe this is it. I don't even know.
Oh wait,
So-
it's still facing you.
Yeah,
I
you
see
want
you
to?
on the screen.
Well, I bet you can be heard better right now.
Hi, can you see me? Oh, can I see me? Sort of. Oh,
There you
there's
are.
me looking down.
Yeah, you have
Hi.
to look at this.
Okay.
There you go. Can y'all hear her now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Okay, thank you all for showing up and sharing and for doing the work that you do. So let's see, first question. I live in Southern Vermont, just for context. My first question is, are there like Vermont lawmakers or civic leaders or like particular individuals you know of that I could lean on and push and like make phone calls or write letters to, or like people in the state of Vermont who are in support of Milk with Dignity, who I might tell that I appreciate their support and I'm keeping an eye on them, and likewise folks who don't support the campaign who I can let know that I'm watching and would like for them to support. Grab my book too.
I can respond to Abel if you want to add. But yeah, the target, really like the person with the power in this campaign that we're focused on is really the CEO of Hannaford. So instead of it being focused around like the legislature or the governor or something like that, we're really trying to pressure that like corporate structure, like Abel was talking about. And so our actions when we do stuff like in person, like the marches and rallies, or when we do like social media stuff or phone calls, are really like calling on that person whose name is Mike Vail. But being in Southern Vermont, something that I was thinking is there's actually a team of people who've been doing reoccurring actions at the Brattleboro. I don't know what part of Southern Vermont you're in. Yeah. Okay, cool. So connecting with that team of people in Brattleboro to plug into the awesome work that they're doing at their local Hannaford would be something that I think would be awesome if you're interested in. And I don't know if you could, or if you want to put like an email contact in the chat and we could follow up with you directly, or I'll put our email in the chat right now, or like that info@migrantjustice.net is a way that we can get connected.
Are you allowed to tell me their names? I might very well go to potlucks with them.
Let's see if I can remember. Oh gosh, I don't think off the top of my head I can remember, but we did 2 presentations in Brattleboro during the speaking tour. I'm trying to think like which organizations.
The Root Social Justice Center, does that ring?
The Root, did you say?
Yeah, the Root.
Yeah, we're connected with folks at the Root. Abel, did you do any of the presentations in Brattleboro when we went?
I did. I can't remember where.
One was at the Unitarian Church, right? The All Souls.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And then another was like outside of town. I did one of them with a group of people that was outdoors, like on Route 5 or something, the road that goes to Bennington.
Route 9.
Route 9. Okay.
With this
like sustainable food network team. Anyway, if we can connect over email or phone, I can share those folks' contact. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, cool. And you were also answering another question just in the beginning back, because I came in late and then I was sort of gathering my head and my questions and thoughts and looking some things up while I was watching the video. So the strategy is going after the corporation itself. It's not about legislators. Though if a legislator wanted to come to an action, that would only be great. Just as a community member and vocal leader in the community, helping to spread the word. Okay, I guess here's another question. In terms of Hannaford's supply chains, do you know, like, do they source from Vermont farms, or like, I'm curious about their supply chains, particularly because when I think about what pushback people might have, right, suicide rates among dairy farmers are super high, especially in the state of Vermont. Horizon Organic just pulled out. Like, dairy farmers themselves are screwed right now. Not that that means farm workers should be screwed also. So I'm hearing those echoes in my head of people saying like, our farmers are like we can't. And I want to say, yes, we can figure it out. We can. And if Hannaford is not necessarily even sourcing milk from Vermont farms, then that's a helpful thing to know, to kind of come back at people with, of like, actually Hannaford increasing their premium, like paying more for milk, is not going to hurt Vermont dairy farmers at all. Do you know what I mean? So I'm curious if there's any info that you know, or how I might learn more about Hannaford's supply chains, particularly in Vermont, to kind of just educate myself more about that if people bring that up.
Abel, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start.
got
I
a
can
good
start,
slides.
and then you can I think you've been doing a lot of work on the project.
Val, can you go a little closer to your mic because it was a little hard to hear you.
Oh,
little
sure.
hard.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
this
that's
better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I can definitely give it a try, and I think Madeline can help out. But yeah, so I think I'll start sort of sharing an experience with Ben and Jerry's. Right, when we started campaigning Ben and Jerry's, basically we're saying, hey, Ben and Jerry's, there's these issues in your supply chain, in the farms that you're in Vermont, you're a Vermont company, and they were saying, well, yeah, I don't, they were saying, no, those farms are not where I buy from, right? They were trying to just, not take responsibility. Um, and I think any company that you approach and be like, hey, these are issues that are happening in farms that you're purchasing milk from or you're purchasing product from, they're gonna deny it, right? So same with Ben and Jerry's, we were saying, hey, these issues are happening. They were saying, no, those issues are not happening in my supply chain. And then eventually, the workers and the community had to, tell their stories to prove them wrong, and show the public the reality. And similar with Hannaford's, I think they're saying, hey, we know that they're purchasing milk from Vermont, but they're not gonna sort of tell us where they're purchasing them from. But they're always saying, hey, those issues are not happening in my supply chain. That's their answer, right? So we know that there are farms here in Vermont that are selling to them, and that's why we continue to to campaign them, and we will continue to to share some of those stories that are coming out from the community. Yeah, Madeline.
Yeah. I think something that really inspires me about the structure of the Milk with Dignity campaign. I'm not sure when you came into the presentation, but Abel was talking about this model called worker-driven social responsibility that focuses on the brands because of this analysis about the corporate power structure in the food system, that farmers are being squeezed by the same system that's keeping farm workers down, and share a lot of the same interests to make changes in the industry. And we understand, I mean, we're very aware of farms are closing right and left every day, going out of business, and really struggling. And Abel was talking about, I mean, there's some farms where conditions are bad because farmers are racist, but there's also farms where farm owners are really trying to do their best by their workers and just don't have the money to really, and about milk prices being the same as they were in the 70s. I mean, it's just impossible. Mm-hmm. And so part of the way that this program works is that the funding to make the changes that are required actually comes from the brand that's making the larger profit off in this case milk. So Ben and Jerry's is participating in Milk with Dignity. They pay a premium to farms for the milk that they're buying. And so Hannaford, when they join this program, when they join, they would do the same thing. So it's really important that the money is coming from above down to farmers and to farm workers as in part to be an economic relief in the system that's squeezing everybody. And then you asked about the supply chain, which is crucial and really difficult. Abel was talking about Hannaford saying no, there's no problem, which is true. They're trying to deny both issues and that there's farm workers in their supply chain. So a lot of our work has been whatever it's called, debunking or whatever, but showing that that's not true. And so Abel, a part of Abel's work is directly with farm workers to say this is the reality that I'm facing on my farm. How can you say that these aren't abuses? And then part of my work with allies has been researching the supply chain, and that stuff isn't public, so it's really hard we've had to, what we started doing was working with volunteers all across the region, including Massachusetts, to go to supermarkets and look at the fluid milk on the shelves. And there's like actually a code on there, which I didn't know. I learned through this process, but you can look up that dairy code and find out where the milk was processed, what processing plant it went to. So that allowed us to really tie Hannaford brand conventional milk to hood plants across the region. And there's hood plants in Vermont, there's hood plants in Massachusetts and Maine, all over. And then we had to really connect farms to plants, to dairy plants. And so that's actually looked like working with volunteers to follow dairy trucks, to like hang out on dirt roads near farms and keep an eye out for the truck and then follow it to the plant, so that we can really say without a doubt, this milk is going to this plant, and from that plant, it ends up with this brand sticker on the shelves, because that information is not public. And so we've had to do our own research. And in that way, we've been mapping out the Hannaford supply chain and can really say that they're buying milk from Vermont, but all across the Northeast. And then, then the work on the ground with farm workers to provide testimony and document the conditions and be like, listen, like you're buying milk from this farm and look at the reality.
Do you have like a visual of that supply chain, like a map or something? Like I'm a very visual person. I'd be very curious to see more of that information, like to visualize it and to and really visualize it in terms of like the communities I live in and the farms I'm connected to and relationships, right? Like who do I know in these different places? Like I'm just, does that exist in any sort of visual form or form that like you could share that I could make visual myself if I wanted to?
Yeah, that'd be cool. We have a lot of internal documents about like tracking just like the research. I don't think we have like one map, but it's stuff we're still trying to expand all the time. So it'd be, if this is something that like perks your interest, it'd be awesome to talk more.
Well, I have a thought for you actually. If you wanted someone to do any sort of like data processing or creating maps, I don't know if this is of interest or use at all, but the organization I work with, one of my jobs, the one mostly that I'm wearing a hat on today, is called Rachel's Table. We're based out of Springfield, Mass. We do different kinds of food rescue and redistribution work. I run our gleaning program. And we partner with Smith College. They have a GIS, what is that, Geographic Information Systems class what semester did we just finish? Each fall, that their students do different projects, basically taking our data and analyzing it or making maps. So like they just made these beautiful, really interesting story maps for me this year about all the farms we glean from, how much produce we glean from there, where it gets distributed to. There are dots of different sizes depending on how much produce and how many places it went, and then lines that go to all the different distribution sites. And they're always looking for projects in the fall. And if that is something that could be useful for Milk with Dignity to like have some maps or visuals or some other sort of data analysis, if that's interesting to you at all, I could put you in touch with that professor.
That sounds awesome. Yes.
Sounds really cool. Yeah, it'll be great to have something.
Say that again?
No, I think it'll be great to have something like that.
Yeah, I'm just, because I'm thinking also, I mean, like visuals, to me, I'm just a visual learner, and that helps me process, I think, not only what you all are finding and sharing, but it helps me imagine how I can tap in. And it teaches us things. I mean, having people put together data, I learned things about our own gleaning program that I didn't realize through them putting together these maps. So yeah, I just wonder how that could be a tool to get more folks involved, or also like, and getting students involved, and students who yeah, it might bring also kind of their own activist communities and ally communities into the work. Yeah, I can connect you if you're interested in that.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be super cool. I also wonder if it could be combined, maybe like a stop on the speaking tour to get to know students in person, or
Yeah, I wonder, speaking tours in April. Were there any Hannafords? They're not really in Western Massachusetts, right?
there's 15.
If you
No, but I'm
flash
trying
that
to think
list
of those
again,
towns, yeah.
I don't think any of those, when I looked at that just now, I think they're more central and Boston area, but if you flash the list again, you take a look at that. But the speaking tour, does that need to be paired with Hannaford sites, or no, that's just speaking tour, just like go to communities where people want to learn about it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just community.
I think you've probably already tapped into this, but I think the Unitarian churches are great because
Mhm.
they're open, but also a lot of people that go there tend to be well off and might go to a Hannaford's. I mean, everybody around me goes to Market Basket. But you know, Hannaford's Unitarians will be good for these tours, and I might try to talk to the one I'm affiliated with for you.
That'd be
It's
fantastic.
funny how they
Yeah.
plan. It's actually in the one I'm affiliated with is in West Roxbury, near
Cool.
in a suburb of Boston.
Mhm.
That I think they're good. I worry that they plan out further than April, but I'm gonna check it out for you guys. Check it out.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly, like talk to the friend who knows the other friend that hopefully eventually we
Yeah.
are able to plan a really successful speaking tour.
Do you know if you've done any speaking tour stops around Northampton, Massachusetts?
Definitely. Yeah, we have a strong relationship with the Pioneer Valley Worker Center.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, great. Um,
And one more
I
thing,
think,
you know,
Abel,
those
you were at that presentation, right?
what?
Oh, I was just thinking back. I think I was like, Abel, I think you went to Amherst, right?
You know, those two people I know in Montpelier, one of them is a legal person, and one of them is devoted to union issues. So
Cool.
I'm gonna make sure they know that they're hooked in with you guys too, because they would be good allies. They're a married couple that, a dynamic duo kind of thing.
That sounds great.
On your April tour, do you have anything planned with the Pioneer Valley Worker Center or no? Because I don't need to like double up in the same area if you already have something in the works there.
Not yet. We're early in the planning process. I don't think we've told them yet.
Okay. There's
But
also
it's-
some Unitarian Universalist churches, as long as we're talking about the UU churches. There's a couple of them that come, actually there are a handful of churches who come gleaning every year, who are really invested in, they're invested in learning about and engaging in food system topics and issues, and what's been really presented to them and made accessible is more like food access and gleaning. It's just kind of like been their in, but I could see some of those church groups being really interested in this also. So I don't know also if you're coming to the area, if you want to focus on just one event, or if you'd want to do like a couple different events, or like, I don't need to double up if you're like, we're planning to call Pioneer Valley Worker Center, but would it be useful for me to check in with these churches and see if any of them are interested in maybe hosting something?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be fantastic. Yeah. We've done multiple presentations in the same town before, and it can be, especially in bigger places, I think it can be totally worthwhile to connect with as many people as possible.
Okay, great.
While we're on the church topic too, I'm gonna make a plug for my Lutherans here.
Yay.
I'm with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and at least since I'm in Puerto Rico most of the year, or half the year, at least the Puerto Rican Lutherans were very environmental focused and food justice focused. So I would be surprised if the ones in the United States, usually those types of instructions to focus on that sort of issue are top down. So maybe the ELCA would be another good option.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, that'll be great. The more we can spread the word about the campaign and supporting, that'll be awesome in the tour.
I'm excited because the person who just joined the room, Anna, are you there? Anna's my friend. Anna lives in the same area. Anna, can you hear? Are you there? Hello, attending virtually from Nima. Yes, I work with Bucket Cloud Farm. Yes. Hi, Anna. Anna, do you want to work with me on getting like a event going for April speaking tour? Yeah.
Yay.
Okay, great.
Anna, I don't know.
Oye, el café es tuyo, el que está ahí.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I see Anna on camera now, and I see your comment in the chat as well.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, libraries are great. Mm-hmm.
At the East Meadow Long Meadow or East Long Meadow.
Yeah. And we did a couple, maybe just one presentation in New York City last time, but I mean, massive city. If Paul, if you have like more connections in New York.
There's the People's Forum in New York City that I've got contact with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay, this is awesome.
I have another question. I'm curious about how to phrase my question. I guess I'm just curious more about like the tension, the areas of tension and cooperation between farmers and farm workers in this movement, and particularly in the instances where you were saying like some farmers really are trying to do well by their workers and they can't. Others are racist a-holes. And that piece where both farmers and farm workers are subjected to the corporate power structure. And so I guess I'm just like curious where you find farmers and farm workers to be working together in this, or like, right, it seems like getting them on the same side, helping them realize that they are on the same side would be part of this. And I'm just curious to hear more about how that, I don't know, how you read that and how that goes or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. It's a really good question. Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think that's something that so before the let me see. I think sort of when we started sort of calling on Ben and Jerry's, hey, like these are some issues that are happening in your supply chain. There was some pushback from some farmer community saying, hey, like that's not true. These things are not happening in Vermont in their industry, right? And so I think there was farmers that were a little bit afraid about the Mill with Dignity program. And part of that was because they didn't really understand sort of that piece, that the economic redistribution. The program is not going. We're not going after farmers. We're going after the corporations. And in order for their industry to thrive, we need workers and we need farmers and we need corporations. And I think when the program started to roll out in the first year or so, farmers started noticing that it's better to be under the program. There's a lot of benefits to be under the program. Getting a higher price for your milk, and so I think there's farmers that now are saying, hey, we need to ask for higher premiums and stuff like that, right? Because they know that the program is truly working. It's not just for farm workers, but it's also for farmers, and try to create dignity around their industry. And I think that when we go out to the farms and to the farms that are outside of the Mill with Dignity program, you know, we still find some of that resistance, some of that pushback. And you know, but we always try to, you know, educate farmers on, you know, hey, like, you know, I'm sure you want to be paying higher wages, and I'm sure you know, want to be getting a better price for your milk. And we just start having an honest conversation, and getting them to understand, you know, that we're not after, you know, like farmers. We're really after sort of the corporations. But it's you know, it's a work in progress. I think there's some farmers, you know, that now starting to understand, you know, this is a way for everyone in the dairy industry to achieve dignity and to have respect. But there's also other farmers that, you know, you know, and we really have had these experiences where it doesn't really matter. You know, farmers that have the money, they have a lot of money, you know, buying new tractors every year, new trucks every year, new things every single year. And they just really don't really care about human rights or about their workers. There's, you know, they really treat them with really bad conditions. And so I think that there is a mix, you know, of feelings out there. And that's part of our job and part of what we try to do. You know, and there's a report that is released every year about the program and the benefits, and testimonies from even farmers themselves, so testifying on how this is working. You know, we hope that through that, farmers start to sort of not educate, but understand more about the program and sort of demystify it, understand that this is not bad, this is actually good. Yeah, I don't know, Madeline, if you want to ask anything else.
No, I think that's great. I'm just searching for a link to that. Abel's talking about a Milk with Dignity report that comes out. So I'm gonna put it in the chat so y'all can check that out.
And I'll just add, but I don't think we touched on this, and I think we can, like, if you guys go to the link that Madeline is posting, it's important to read some of the reports. You know, but you know, the Mill with Dignity program is actually transforming some of these farms. You know, where before that, you had workplaces where there was no like literally no protection equipment for workers. You know, there was nothing, nothing really existed. And now through the program, you know, these farms have improved. You know, they're getting a higher premium. They're able to improve the working conditions, improve the living conditions. You know, farmers are keeping money in their pocket. So, and I think it goes above sort of, you know, raising wages and doing that. You know, it also focuses on like the working conditions themselves and preventing accidents and preventing issues and doing a lot of that. And in that sense, you know, a lot of farms have improved, and a lot of farmers have noticed the difference. You know, there's less, you know, people or farm workers leaving the farms all their week because they cannot withstand the conditions. You know, so workers are staying for longer. And you know, farmers have to invest less in training new people every single week that are coming in. And so I think you know, both the money piece, I think sort of in terms of the operation on the farm itself, I think everything under the program, it's improving. And there's a clear difference between farms under the program and outside of the program. Especially with the pandemic, for example, that's a clear example of how you know, having a program in place really helped to protect workers by having you know, housing protection, by having you know, workplace protections and the equipment to wear a mask and the gloves and stuff like that. You know, and so there's a long list of amazing things that have happened in the program. If you guys going through the report, but yeah, I think you know, farmers are starting to realize that, you know, the real enemy here is corporations. Mm-hmm.
So we have 4 minutes left. I don't know if there's anything else, or if we just want to make sure we have everybody's contact information before we go.
What will happen with the chat?
The recording, so we are recording, so I do believe it'll all be saved.
I'm gonna save it also just for us to follow up with you all. It's just like awesome brainstorm ideas coming out here. So I want to make sure to be able to follow up.
Is there somewhere on your website like a text version of what exactly it is that they sign on to? Like, what is the program that Hannaford would be signing? I'd love to actually read that and really familiarize myself with
Yeah, totally.
the tangible kind of piece
There
of that.
it is. And I'm gonna put a link to it here.
Maybe we can also grab the millwithdignity.org, their
Oh, yeah.
website too.
The Standards Council.
Yeah, the Standards Council's website.
Yeah. I was talking about the monitoring body, the Milk with Dignity Standards Council. And they have their own website. Which I just put in there.
Hi.
But yeah, would love to be able to follow up with all of you. I know I have the like NOFA MA organizer folks emails, but like Anna and
Kara.
and Tara, if you wanted to put your email, if you want to do some follow-up afterwards.
See if I can put them in. Let me see if I can.
Sure. I'll also
Here, you want to type them in, maybe.
I can. I also will very happily, I promise, I'll email you
Okay,
from my
awesome.
computer, just info at that one.
Yeah.
Is that-
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be in touch because I kind of jotted
Perfect.
down a couple
Okay.
of questions and things I wanted to follow up on.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Let's keep talking. This is
Okay.
great.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank
That's
you all.
really
Thanks so
awesome.
much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I learned a lot.
Oh, good.
You guys are doing great things.
Good.
I go to the
Thank you.
Hannaford in
Likewise.
Manchester, New Hampshire, sometimes, because it's right near where I teach.
Mhm,
There's one
mhm.
right there. So I might hit them up with a little something. I'll look at your website for the toolkit.
Great. Yes. Awesome. I'm gonna save the chat too right now.
Cool. I'm gonna start to pack up and head to another session. Thank you all.
Thank
and
you.
more
Thank
soon.
you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great conference.